Yes, good morning. You're listening to Radio Skid Row, 88.9 Radio Skid Row. It is 15 minutes to 7 o'clock, and we have our special guest on is Brian Shaw. It is my name's Jack Frost. Brian Shaw is from, he has a website called www.elizaschallenge.net, and he's been on Radio Skid Row numerous times. Brian, good morning. How are you, mate?
Good morning, Jack.
How's things going for you?
I'm good, mate.
What's been going on for you? Last time I talked to you, you went to court a few times. What was that all about?
I'm generally in court somewhere or another.
Yep. You've been you know a lot about the court, and you've always represented yourself.
I have.
Which most people get a lawyer or someone else, and seem to always have a stiff deal or sometimes a good deal. They just never know because they're not representing themselves.
Well, the average person can't comprehend a court process.
No.
Neither can they comprehend the type of acts that's required to be substantiated within the court, and they don't generally like the court pressure.
No, it's an intimidation.
And the moment what you call the cost order issue comes up, because at all times the courts want to give the law firms the money. It's mates rates issue. So unless a litigant in person really knows what they're about, it's a minefield.
Yeah, definitely. I try and stay away from them as much as I can because I just know it's going to be a done deal. And but as soon as you go in, with the lawyers, they go to a bar. It's sort of like the unions. Sort of the unions for lawyers. It's sort of like a little club that none of us of the public really have any chance of.
Oh, well, unless you understood Freemasonry, you wouldn't understand the law.
So would you say that with the courts and that, it is mostly under the Masonic rule?
I would say that every courtroom in Australia is a Masonic lodge.
Is a Masonic lodge?
Yeah.
How do you mean by that?
Well, if it's not been built by them, it's been worked by them.
Mm.
By that I mean they'll go in the evening and work the lodge, or work the courtroom as a lodge.
Right.
So it's essentially establishing that this is our room. We own this structure, because if you want to control the people, you've got to control them without letting them knowing that you're actually controlling them.
That's exactly right. Mind control's another
and
thing.
You've got to be able to do a lot of that quietly and privately and in secret. But you've got to understand that with Freemasonry, it's high-level spiritual knowledge. And the average person, and you only have to watch them on a train going to work of a morning, they're so fixed on nothingness that it's very easy to control them.
Well, it's the monetary system and everything else, and the mortgage that you have, and the stress levels of the society, which we all sort of congregate into the city together.
Well, I'll talk about two issues that you just raised there.
Yeah.
Number one, you're talking about mortgages and money.
Yeah.
The average person doesn't give the time to understand what fractional reserve banking is. Now, a lot of that would be out there on the web. I haven't looked.
Mm.
But to understand it would probably only take about a half an hour.
Mm.
Now, if banks are using fractional reserve banking, that's fraud on the people. The other one is the mortgages. At this point of time, you've got what I call securitization of mortgages, where banks are selling mortgages to pools in the United States. Now, the moment that they do that, which is done essentially within a week or two of obtaining the mortgage, the moment they on-sell it into a pool in the United States, they've lost any right to claim the mortgage in a court if the mortgage goes belly up. That's a big issue. And the people really need to understand that if they've got a mortgage, they need to understand, was it on-sold into a pool? You can find a lot of that out on the web too.
This is everyone's wedding signatures going across. The banks are selling it over to we don't know. What is it?
Well, let's say you and I will role play this for a minute, Jack.
All right.
I'm the banker, you're the client. You want $1 million off me.
Yeah.
Did did I get the $1 million that I purportedly give you from a fund of the shareholders' fund within the bank? I'll tell you that I didn't. Your application created the $1 million. It's a promissory note. Your application became a promissory note to me. I then gave it, permitted you to have it, and immediately you owed me principal and interest. Now, the moment that we established the paperwork, I then on-sell your mortgage, the $1 million mortgage, to a pool in the United States. Now, a week or two ago, I never had anything. I didn't have your signature on a piece of paper. I didn't have your application. I didn't have that $1 million. I didn't take it from the bank funds. Now, the way to establish if it came from the bank funds is on discovery to say in a courtroom, show me the $1 million being transferred out of the shareholder fund that you have in the bank holding the mortgage money. The courts won't permit them to do that because they know they won't be able to produce it. That then is on-sold into America. Now, the moment that it's on-sold, me as the banker, I've lost the right to the legal ownership of it. Therefore, if you go belly up, which I'm proposing that you will, because when they on-sell these, Jack, they actually have the futures exchange edging that it will go belly up. So the very people who purchase it also edge it that it will go belly up.
So they're betting against you straight away.
Absolutely. Now, you can find a lot of that in a documentary called Inside Job.
Inside Job, yeah. That was a movie. Actually, the Academy over in America, the Academy Awards, has named it the best documentary. But still, people are still getting mortgages. You know what I mean?
Well, they've got to get mortgages because they've got to. The only way, it's part of the Australian living. You want to have a house.
Yeah, well.
But then to get the house, you have to go to the bank. But the problem is they didn't understand the process after that. Now we're talking. To get there, we're talking Section 51 of the Commonwealth Constitution. Now, the average person doesn't even have a constitution. You watch them on the train. I've been on the train lately, and I watch them on the train. Not one of them are listening or reading anything of any substance in relation to their rights.
I know.
They're all got earphones on, novels, and looking out the windows like with vacantness.
That's probably what's happening right now this morning.
That's exactly what's happening.
And stuck in traffic.
But
All listening
what
to you,
they
Brian.
don't understand is they needed to have downloaded their constitution, either state or Commonwealth, and have a read of it. Now, when we're talking banking, we're talking Section 51 of the Commonwealth Constitution, and there's 39 subsections in that. About 10 of those are related to taxation, money, mortgages, or bills of exchange. Now, here comes the problem. West Australia took the Crown out of West Australia, but West Australia voted. Does that affect the ramifications of Section 51? Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does. Now we're coming into the Queensland election.
Yeah, going to the Queensland, but with that constitution, the Western Australia one, when was this done, when the Crown was taken out? Just
January 1, 2004.
And this is documented there in front of everyone, the public face to see?
There's an Act of Parliament that did it.
Yeah. And
they'd say, where's the evidence? The evidence is the Act of Parliament that did it.
Now, is it on your website, Elijah's Challenge?
Yes.
If you go to elijahschallenge.net, you can get that act that they've done and they've taken.
Well, you go to a writ that I've just filed against the Attorney General of Victoria, which is in that website takes two branches. One is scriptural, and the other is legal. So you head into the legal one and find the writ that's just been filed against the Attorney General of Victoria. There's 74 documents in that. Now, one of those documents is that Act. It's called the Acts Amendment Repeal Courts and Legal Practice Act, West Australia, 2003. One of those, I think it's either in the first 5 documents listed, is that Act of West Australia. If you go straight to the back of the Act, which is Part 8, 10 pages or so at the back, and then Part 5, which is also at the back, so they've essentially attached Part 5 and Part 8 to the back of the Act. And then when it went into the West Australian Parliament, there was only one person who was actually legally trained, probably two, which was the former Attorney General of Western Australia, and then another person called Sue Walker. She had a law firm in West Australia. They're the only two. Peter Foss was the former Attorney General. But when it went into Parliament, Peter Foss said these words: Part 5 and Part 8 is ultra-virus before we even begin. Now, do you know what those words mean, Jack?
Nope.
What he actually meant was, the moment he mentioned the word ultra-virus, and remember, this guy was the former Attorney General of West Australia, so he's legally trained.
He's under the Bar Association.
And he would have been a very good lawyer. But what he said was, you've introduced an act or a bill that is ultra-virus. That means it's beyond power. You can't do it. Just those couple of words, ultra-virus, is very big in law. It just simply says you've introduced a bill that is beyond power to bring to this Parliament. Now, what he should have said was, if you go any further with this bill, you'll be committing an act of treason. He should have said that. But what is treason in law? Because the average person thinks it's armed insurrection and a whole lot of other crap.
Or sometimes even people think treason's back in the old days in England.
All that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Now,
but what treason is in law is breach of allegiance.
Of what they're doing with the Constitution. And now you've put... you've made aware to Julie Gillard and a whole bunch of people about this.
Including judiciary.
Yeah, and even the Victorian judiciary.
And Attorney Generals. Every Attorney General in the Commonwealth has been charged criminally for concealing this. And the judiciary in Victoria is concealing those charges.
All right, well, listen, we're going to go into a song. We're going to have Janis Joplin. Just goes on for about 2 minutes. If you can hold on there, Brian, and then we're going to talk about this Queensland election and what's happened with Anna Bligh. Just hold on there, Brian. Cheers.